It is finally confirmed the legendary devil fruit of Elbaph is here, and Loki has no choice but to eat it. So hey everyone, welcome to my video. We have an insane brief spoilers of chapter 1169 of One Piece, and we got some insane drops of leaks. And this has come out earlier today on Twitter, and it was leaked by Pewpiece. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but if you don't, and if you want to follow him on Twitter, just make sure you check out my description. I have the link taking to his Twitter page. Anyway, chapter 1169 is titled I Must Die. This means that Harold is probably dying here, and I want to know what happens to the devil fruit, because that's the insane spoiler that I'm after here. So the first point here talks about the color spread. We see Rock's pirates dressing with black suits. Okay, personally, I'm not too much into these color spreads because, it's not actually telling a story what's going on behind the scenes, in the One Piece world. But some people, they like looking into these color spreads just so that they can formulate, they take some, I don't know, some images, some, props, I don't know, whatever's there in these color spreads, and they make theories out of it. So anyway, moving on to the first point here. Okay, Gaban says Garp told him Roger has a son. Shanks then says that Child is like his younger brother. All right, this is crazy. So they don't happen to know that Roger had a son. So Roger didn't want to tell these guys that he had a kid, and they hear about it through Garp. Is pretty crazy. I mean, it's natural for us to think that the Roger pirates were closer to Roger than Garp, right? It's pretty crazy that we just learn. These guys just get to learn about Ace's existence through Garp. Okay, all right. I mean, whatever, man. And then for the next point, we have Herald order giant soldiers to kill him. That's a scene we saw in chapter 1152 when Loki and Yarol arrived at the castle. Okay, so we're going back to where we originally stopped, and we wanted to continue with the story. I think Loki started off saying that when he and Yarol entered the castle, he saw the soldiers were trying to kill Herald, right? So we are there now. So basically what these guys are saying is that we go to that part where we continue on with the story. What happened? Okay, let's move on to the next point. Okay, so the next point is Shanks explains he's in Elbaph to tell Herald not to accept the Knight of God position. Okay, so this pretty much confirms that he knew all about the Knight of God and what that would mean. What are the consequences of getting into that position? So that is why he didn't show up to get the seal, the deep sea contract, right? So he wanted to get in. He wanted to, get into the God of Knights. He wanted to infiltrate Merijoa and learn everything there is to learn about Emu. And he knew, how much distance he need to keep himself away, just so that he's kind of safe. And this one's not mentioned in this brief spoilers here, but there was a tweet that came out later on, which kind of explained that getting the Knight of God position with the deep sea contract, that would mean, that basically opens up Emu to control you wherever you are around the world. So if you have the shallow contract, for example, there's a certain limit, like a parameter you can, sort of thing. So if you are beyond that, horizon, then Emu can't control you. So if you just maintain your distance, you're still good. You get to keep all those basic, abilities that comes with the shallow contract, and you are safe from Emu. As long as Emu is not, like in the radius, you're safe. So Shanks knew all about it. It's pretty crazy. And, that is why he got out. Sadly, he's just too late. He didn't realize that, if he didn't show up, they would just straight out, get Herald to take his position, right? So that's what happened. Moving on to the next point. So Herald explains Loki and Arol and giant soldiers. Okay, so he's explained to everybody, what's happening, that he worked with the government and they betrayed him. I feel sad for the guy. Then he asks Loki to kill him and to tell Elbaph what happened. So he told Loki to tell everybody, and Loki, for whatever reason, chose not to. And, Jarl could have explained, the situation to everybody, and he chose not to as well. So there must be something that happened which made it, impossible for everyone to tell what exactly went on. And now, from the way it seems, how Elbaph thinks of Loki is that he's the murderer. He went on to kill Harald just so that he can get the legendary fruit. That's the perception everybody has. And I'm assuming that, in the coming chapters, we would learn why is that, right? Anyway, on to the next point. Harald orders Loki to eat the legendary devil fruit. Otherwise, he won't be able to kill or defeat him. Okay, all right, this is crazy. We didn't know that, Harald knew about this legendary devil fruit's existence, because then, my first question would be, if he knew about the legendary devil fruit, why didn't he just eat it himself, right? He was strong, but he could have been stronger eating this devil fruit. And mind you, this guy, he knows about the deep sea contract now, and he knows how much more power he got from it. Yet he believes that if Loki happens to eat the fruit, he can kill him. That means this legendary devil fruit, whatever it is just insanely powerful, right? People are speculating that this is that devil fruit that lets you turn into that animal. I don't know what it's called. I'm just gonna bring that on the screen here. So if this monster form, if Loki can tap into that, he's pretty much becoming a legendary figure, right? And maybe that is why when we first entered Elbaph and when we first got to see Loki, he called himself the sun god. Maybe this legendary fruit has some sort of connection to being a sun god, but I guess we'll get to learn more about it. Moving on to the next point. Harald has lost his sense of mind completely, turning into a cruel monster and attacking everyone, including Arul, who got stabbed in his head. Alright, so that means Harald is basically turned into a dummy reverse here, right? I mean, we've not seen that happen before. We've seen Emu take control of their body, but we've never seen they go berserk, right? So we've only seen that happen when Emu has casted his or her ability of dummy reverse, which turns a good guy into a devil. And this is basically what has happened to Harald here. So maybe there was some sort of communication between Emu and Harald before this happened. And, Harald refused to take his order. And, since he has asked everybody to kill him, Emu probably got to, know about it. And, Emu just thought, okay, so if everybody learns about, and he also kind of told everybody what happened. So, Emu didn't want these guys to live anymore, right? So Emu just straight out decided that, okay, you guys must die now. So it's just crazy, what happened here. So Harald completely lost his mind and, Emu took over, right? All right, moving on to the next point. Shanks and Gaban tried to stop Harald, but it's pointless since Harald lost his mind. Okay, so that means Shanks and Gaban, like I said earlier, was here already, and they were just talking to each other, and somehow they figured out something's going on. I can feel that hockey, and there's some. This is weird. Like usually we would not be expecting this level of intense fight going on in Elbaph unless there's something wrong. So they realized that, and they arrived at this battle. And they saw Harald, going berserk, and they wanted to stop him. They first wanted to figure out what the hell is going on, right? And, tried to stop Harald because they know Harald. They don't know why he's attacking, but they know him, so they want to stop him first, right? And then they realize that it's pointless because it looks like it's not actually Harold, and he's kind of completely lost his mind, and he's attacking everybody senseless, even the people that he was very close to. So they kind of figured that this is not Harold. I mean, it's Harold, but he doesn't have control over his mind anymore. Maybe Shanks knew about this all along, that if you happen to get that mark, the deep sea contract, you would lose control and Emu can take control of your body. And he probably realized that it's too late for him to explain that to Harold anymore, because he may have already signed that contract. So Loki goes to the treasure room to eat the legendary devil fruit. When Loki enters the treasure room, Ragnir hammer attacks him. This confirms that there is a hammer, and maybe this hammer is what caused that lightning. And we saw fire. Like in the earlier chapters, we saw Loki cast that, do something, and then everybody beat the hell out of him and he lost consciousness. But maybe before that happened, maybe he cast that using Ragnir. So if you don't know, Ragnir is that weapon that we saw in Marvel, and it's part of the the mythology, the Nord mythology, where usually Thor has this hammer. But in this case, in One Piece, we don't have Thor, or maybe we do, we just don't know him. But anyway, looks like from the looks of things, it's his brother who's acting like Thor, the good guy, and Loki being Loki. It's just weird to see that Loki carry Ragnir in this universe. But anyway, so if it's the same kind of weapon, it's probably the weapon which cast that lightning, and we saw that huge fire in that tree. There's also another theory here that I feel is kind of tied to this Ragnir. Maybe Ragnir is the weapon which ate the legendary fruit, and Loki doesn't have that fruit anymore. He just carries that weapon, and technically it is like having that fruit for himself, right? But it wouldn't explain why people tied him to that tree using a sea stone chain, right? Because then it would only make sense for him to be affected if he ate the fruit himself. But then again, it doesn't make sense for a weapon to attack someone on its own. I mean, we've seen a lot of weapons, cursed weapons, and weapons that has ate a devil fruit before, but we've never seen those weapons take action by itself, right? We've always had one person who wields that weapon and they attack with it, casting the ability of that weapon, and so on. But this is the first time that we see Ragnir attack someone on its own. So it's not only has the potential to think for itself and like has a consciousness, but also it chose to do a certain action. I don't know if we've seen that before in One Piece, but this is just new to me. So maybe we will get some sort of explanation to what exactly happened here. But it's pretty cool that we finally get Ragnir and get to see that legendary devil fruit. So that's pretty much it. That's the end of the chapter. It says there's a magazine break next week. This is not from Oda, but there's a magazine break. But just be mindful that we are going to see more spoilers come out of chapter 1169 on Thursday before the official or the full release of the manga comes out on Friday. Usually it comes out on Friday, but you never know. Also know that chapter 1170 brief spoilers is going to come out earlier than usual, which is usually coming out on Tuesday like today. But it seems that chapter 1170 is going to come out early because there's a magazine break coming up next week, and it is great news for us. I mean, we get to learn about chapter 1170. We don't have to wait as long like usual. So just make sure you like and subscribe to my channel so that you get all these updates as soon as they are out. I'm gonna make a video as quickly as possible so that you guys get the news just as early. So thank you again for watching this video. If you like it, just make sure you like the video and subscribe to my channel. See you all in the next one.